Special counsel Jack Smith wants Donald Trump completely silenced. He filed paperwork Wednesday requesting the court to reimpose a federal gag order on the former president as he's continuously lobbed attacks targeting witnesses in the case. Smith even suggested jail time should be considered if Trump keeps it up. Smith is prosecuting the D.C. case against Trump and his role in trying to obstruct Joe Biden's 2020 victory.
Trump is facing a pair of fines, a $5,000 one on Friday and $10,000 yesterday for failing to follow New York Judge Engoron's gag order issued earlier this month. Now, that judge issued the fine, but not before he demanded Trump take the witness stand and also answer these comments. Let's watch.
This judge is a very partisan judge, with a person who's very partisan sitting alongside of him, perhaps even much more partisan than he is.
The former president's ex-fixer, Michael Cohen, testified in the New York civil fraud trial yesterday in which he admitted Trump did not ask that he inflate financial records on his behalf. Trump's legal team requested the judge for an immediate verdict after Cohen's testimony, but that was denied. So we talked about the various gag orders, et cetera, on Donald Trump. I found it interesting. I just learned this. So the ACLU actually submitted a brief taking Trump's side in the gag order that Judge Chutkan had ordered, saying that it's impossibly broad and does in fact violate his free speech rights. They say specifically they say the order is like too broad to be understood. Reading the order, the defendant Trump could not possibly know what he is permitted to say and what he is not.
Yeah, it definitely should be narrowly tailored. I haven't looked at the text of the order, but it certainly should not be the case that there's any ambiguity there. I do think that Donald Trump, the $5,000 and $10,000 orders, if I understand correctly, was immediately after he was told not to say anything more disparaging about court staff. Remember, he had said the thing about the court clerk being in a relationship with Chuck Schumer, immediately hopped on Truth Social and did exactly that again. That seems less ambiguous. I think the question ultimately is going to be, given that he's a billionaire, if any of these $5,000, $10,000 fines are going to have the effect of keeping him from engaging in conversations or tweets or truths that are constructively witness intimidation. And is there going to have to be basically a double standard for Donald Trump where he's able to get away with what other witnesses wouldn't be able to get away with because of the reality of him being a presidential candidate and weighing those competing concerns? That's a pretty tough spot for the court clerk and staff to be in.
The ACLU alluded to that as well, writing, defendants' ability to speak publicly about the substance of the prosecution, even including potential witness and testimonies, is in many ways inextricable from the 2024 presidential campaign in which he's a declared candidate. I was particularly concerned about his possible inability, again, it was unclear from the gag order, to criticize Mike Pence if they were doing a debate and that the topic of January 6th came up. He has to be allowed to elucidate, defend his actions, and criticize other people who are participated in the events of that day. That doesn't mean he gets to, I don't know about disparaging, but he threaten or intimidate, members of the court staff, but this has been. This is all going down the rabbit hole of just trying to stop Trump's speech, which is what I guess annoys so many people in law enforcement.
Yeah, I don't know who would ultimately end up paying for it, but I do hope that people who are targeted by Donald Trump are able to get some recompense for any kind of private security or protection we need to have. Federal judges dealing with difficult cases often do have security. There was, I think, a funding bill within the last year or two where Congress members were advocating to up the protections for judges precisely because of instances like this. So if in the interest of speech, the protection has to come on the other way, I think it should, because there's no doubt that we've seen a number of instances of people taking the kind of rhetoric that is coming out of this kind of corner of politics and running it with it in really destructive ways. And I do think still there's no ambiguity about statements like the Supreme Court clerk is having a relationship with Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, it's
hard to see how that's part of your presidential campaign.
Well, sure. The remedy, if you libel someone, if you commit defamation against someone, they can sue you, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, court clerks making $50,000 a year aren't in the best position to make those kinds of assessments.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying, we do provide broad license even to say, untrue and, deranged things about random people,
I think
right?
I think she's probably less worried about her reputation and more worried about being targeted. I was alluding to instances of this kind of targeting in the past, and Donald Trump actually had to pay, of course, in a defamation case for the two black women who were running the polls down in Georgia, who he and a number of other right-wing figures started to target and name by name as perpetrators of election fraud. And they won their suits. Their names, their claims are part of the Georgia case as well. But they were targeted, they were harassed, they had to leave their homes, all of those kinds of things, because their names were circulated by Donald Trump and people in his cohort in ways that were very destructive to their lives. So that is fundamentally the concern that I don't want to lose sight of. But of course, it does have to be balanced against Trump's First Amendment rights. I would think, running for president of America, that he also would have some concern and compassion for his constituents, his prospective constituents and his former constituents that might be harmed by his words and actions, and that it wouldn't require the law to intervene to keep him from potentially putting a target on somebody's back.
Well, he should think about his campaign prospects as well.
Yeah, but, he in fact should.
But just because you don't like what he says doesn't mean you get to shut him up. So we'll continue following that and have more Rising right after this.